Welcome back to Dagryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. A while back, I had asked if any of you had any questions for me regarding the layout, the hobby, my approach to it in general. Well, today, I'm going to do my best to answer most, if not all, of those questions. I'm not going to answer any specific questions because a good amount of them were all very similar. So I'm kind of paraphrasing and doing my best then to hit on all of the questions that were asked. If I don't answer your question, or if you have additional questions, just let me know in the comments. I'll either answer you right away, or if there's enough, maybe we'll do another video. First, who am I? Well, that's a good question. Who are any of us, really? No, I've been in the hobby most of my life. My first train set I received at Christmas, maybe when I was 3 or 4 years old. My grandfather, my uncles, a lot of people in the family were into trains. At the time, mostly post-war Lionel, which is why I have such a love for the post-war pieces. I initially used that Lionel set that I received that Christmas morning for many years, setting it up either on the floor, on a small layout in my room, later on in the basement on the ping pong table, and it got lots of use, but it was never much more than track laid on a table. My first attempt at an actual layout would have been when I was a teenager. I tried to do an HO layout on a 4x8 sheet, and looking back, it really wasn't very good. I don't think it worked very well, and it certainly wasn't realistic, but at the time, it filled the need and it gave me something to work on. Later on in college, I modeled with N scale, mostly due to space restraints. Also, cost was a factor. It was pretty cheap at the time. The last layout I built before this one that I'm sitting in front of was an N scale layout that measured roughly 2 by 3 feet. It was a single loop of track with one switch on it. I did not go straight from that N-scale layout to what you see now. As I was getting back into the trains, spurred on by my uncle who had given me a couple of old Lionel trains that were in the family, really rekindled my interest, and I came out here to the garage and set up a 4x8 sheet of plywood just so I could run some trains in a loop. It progressed to 2 sheets of plywood and then 3. I was at the point where I was really getting interested and I wanted to build it better and turn it from a table into a layout. I was at a point where I could stop and start over or keep going. And I just felt that that table had too many flaws. And also I couldn't get around it. I couldn't reach a lot. So I said, you know, I'm going to do myself a favor. I'm going to stop now and I'm going to design a layout that will fit the space and meet some of the requirements I have for a layout. It's interesting how things work out. As my interest in the trains was being rekindled, I ended up being laid off from my job due to COVID. So all of a sudden I had time to work on the trains. And I took this room here and did a lot of work on it, put up some walls, some lights, ran electric, did my best to make it a usable space. This layout is roughly 22 feet across the back wall. It comes out about 13 feet along the wall in the middle of the garage, and the peninsula on the other side comes out about 10 feet. The depth in the section behind me is about 3 feet deep. I wanted it to be deep enough for me to get some trains and some details in there, but not so deep that I couldn't reach the back of it. Since I was building it against the walls, I knew that I had to be able to get to everything from the front. I didn't want to have to deal with any hatches or crawl unders or anything like that because I figured if it stays like this for a long time, I don't want to be stuck with a layout I can't get to parts of it. As it is, my knees and my back are not great, so if I had to duck under something every time I came out here, I would be suffering. I designed the layout initially on the computer using AnyRail. And I started with the free version and did as much as I could with what they allow you to have. And then realized I really needed the full software, not to unlock any other features really, but just to allow me to build something big enough in the software so that I could really get an idea of what I was going to build in the garage. Now, planning isn't really my strong point, but I did the best I could. I tried all sorts of different layouts, designs, features. I knew I wanted to be able to reach everything. I knew I did not want duck unders, crawling under. I didn't want anything that would make it harder to reach anything. I wanted it to be simple and easy to live with. I also wanted to be able to continue to use the rest of the space for other things. In my mind, initially, I wanted a small gym set up in the other corner. That has kind of morphed into, hopefully at some point, an 8x8 foot Lego city layout with trains. I was hoping to work on that this summer, but along with many other things that didn't get done this summer, that's one of them. That and insulating the garage, so it's cold in here again, and it's going to be a cold winter, but I'll do what I can when I can and hope for the best. I did not want the room to be all train table, so I figured an around the walls with a peninsula would be the best way to maximize the space while not taking over the space. This main table has 2 fully independent loops, which gives me a good amount of length to run trains. There are no switches. I did not want anything contributing to any possible derailments or rough running. I wanted to be able to just turn the power on and have the trains go indefinitely. I didn't want to worry about issues as they were going. I had initially tried a crossing. Some of the engines would get to the crossing and just stop. And I didn't want that sort of frustration with the layout. I wanted to be able to just, like I said, sit here, relax, and watch the trains go. That being said, I would really like a couple of sidings. It would be great if I had a staging area. Having to take every engine and car off the layout every time I want to run something different is a little annoying. It would be great if I could just flip a couple of switches and park the Blue Comet and park the Southern Crescent and not have to do anything with them other than that. But that would also add to the expense and the complexity. So considering budget and simplicity, I am happy with the way I'm doing it now. But it is something to consider for the next layout. The track. I'm using Menard's tubular track. It was just the best budget option I could find. I didn't want to deal with old track that was rusting and having conductivity issues. I just wanted to start new, and the Menard's track was the cheapest way to do it and end up with a decent track. The outer loop is 054 all the way around, and the inner loop is 42, I believe, with some spots of 54. And this enables me to run most anything I would be inclined to run. With some of the bigger engines, it would be nice to have a larger diameter turn, but I put things like that on the list for the next layout. And yes, there most likely will be a next layout. Like I probably have said before, this is the first big layout I've ever built, and I'm learning a lot. And I've wanted to stop numerous times and start this whole thing over, but I figured I would keep making mistakes and keep learning, so I'd keep pushing until this layout reaches some resemblance of done, maybe enjoy it for a while I design a new layout, and then start over. Would I add an 072 or a larger radius? Not to this layout. It doesn't have the room, and that would affect my ability to reach everything. I had thought of putting a larger loop of track up on the wall towards the ceiling. I probably won't, just because that would kind of be a pain to do. The ceiling joists aren't exactly 16 inches on center, and I've got concrete walls to deal with. So I think I'm not going to do that. I'm more likely to set up additional loops of track under this layout, but then again, 72 would be too large, unless I put it on some sort of low platform that I was able to stand on. That's an interesting idea. I just thought of that. I don't know. We'll see if that happens. Probably won't, but it's an interesting idea. I had said at one point I was going to put an 027 loop in the far corner with a mine train just to have something pop in and out of a tunnel. I haven't discarded that thought yet, but I've also not really been inspired to work on it. What powers the layout? Right now it's powered by a Lionel 1033 and a K-line transformer that came as part of a set. I've picked up a couple of ZWs over the years. I have two that I picked up for like $50 each. They both need work. The one ZW, I think the breaker's just done in there, or there's other wiring issues, because it started that if I was running the New York Central F3s and another larger engine, the breaker would trip. And then it started happening with smaller engines. So I took that off the layout and started using these smaller transformers just so that I could keep things going. And my goal is to have two ZWs powering this layout. Somebody asked about the benefit of the road bed. I use Track Bed by Woodland Scenics. It's a black foam road bed. It's very easy to work with. When you do the curves, you just slice it down the middle, glue it down to the table, and it works great. Early on, I wasn't too sure if it was making a big difference in sound, but when I switched over from the 027 track I initially started using on this layout to the Menards track, I changed the location of a couple of the tracks, and because of that, I had sections of the track sitting directly on the pink foam, and it made a big difference. I'm not going to say it's quiet in here, but the foam road bed definitely absorbs sound from the track and quiets it down. At one point, I believe I said something about feeling like I had gone in the wrong direction with the layout and that I should have done different things. And I think I've felt that way pretty much every step of the way since I started. I like the way I designed it. I love the fact that I used all foam. There are drawbacks, but there's going to be drawbacks to anything. So somebody asked, what changed my mind? Why do I not feel like I went in the wrong direction? I think that goes back to what I said before, in that I'm learning. This is my first big layout, so I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And the way I am, usually, if I got this far into a project and felt like I made a bunch of mistakes, I would stop and start over. Well, that just means I would have a better idea of everything up to this point, and then I would continue to make mistakes going forward. So I keep reminding myself that I want to finish this layout before starting over, because I need to make all those mistakes. I need to learn all those lessons. Is a layout ever finished? Not one of mine. Most projects to me are never finished. There's always something else you can do. Even if I get this table totally scenic and trains running, I will still be looking for ways to alter it, change it, improve it. I'm not a build it and it's done type of a person. I like to just have it change as I go. It's just, I enjoy that creative process, and to me, it means a layout is never done. But once this layout reaches done enough, it is most likely coming down. But that's not for a long time yet. You sick of me talking yet? I am. But we got more questions to answer. What is my next goal for the layout? Nothing different, just to keep on. I've gotten a good amount of the foam painted up to the level of the upper loop. The next specific goals will be to do some more work on some of the sculpting and finish painting it and getting that upper loop working. Once that happens, then I'll kind of reassess where I want to go from there. Will I use TMCC or DCS? No, not on this layout. This layout is 100% strictly conventional control. I don't want to deal with any of the added expense or confusion of electronics. I want to be able to just come out here and hit an 80-year-old engine with power and have it go. As I've said with other things, though, the next layout, who knows? But this one is just going to be conventional control off the ZWs. I've always loved the ZWs, and that's how I want to run my trains. Yearly train budget. Well, that's a sensitive subject, I'll have to say. I don't have one. I have to come up with a better plan for next year, but up until this point, it was just try not to make bad decisions. one of the things I want to do is take any of the money I have come in from YouTube and put that into a separate account and use that for my train budget. It's not that much money. It'd probably be quite a bit less than I've spent already this year, but it would help me kind of keep a rein on the spending and help me focus on looking for things that I really want instead of just kind of spontaneously grabbing. Display shelves. I would love shelves. What I have now is just some wire shelving and some really cheap shoe racks under the layout holding stuff. And that's just so that I can locate things and not break them. I am not putting shelves over the layout. Because as I said before, we have it behind me and to the other end, they're concrete. And I really just don't feel like mounting shelves on the concrete. Also, I'm not sure how high up I want to go with the mountains. So I don't really want shelves on the wall that will end up blocked by the landscape. There is a wall, behind the camera that I would like to put shelves on, but it's not very big. I've thought of some sort of display under the layout, but I don't really know. I'm not going to have massive display shelves as much as I would like to. It's crazy how much room I have and don't have at the same time. At some point, I might just have to break down and put shelves on the concrete. I don't think I would put any behind me, but maybe on the other end of the garage, since I can get around the peninsula and there's space on the other side, maybe I'd put shelves there. But that's going to come down to what I do with the other corner of the room and if I do that Lego layout. There's way too much up in the air for me to commit to shelving right now. At some point, there will be some sort of shelves, I hope. So I believe that is most of the questions. If I didn't answer something you were wondering about, let me know in the comments. I'll do what I can to get an answer to you. There was one last question. I thought it was a really good one to end on. They wanted to know, how do I make this all work with the demands of work and family? And I'm not really sure how I've made it work, other than I have really, in the last 2 years, focused my attention on this hobby instead of 3 or 4 hobbies. I would not have been able to do this 4 years ago, 5 years ago, because my kids were little. They're old enough that they can do their thing and I can come out here to the garage and do my thing. Earlier on, it was just between having a job that was a lot more demanding and time consuming and having little kids, it wouldn't have been possible. But now that they're older and my current job's a little more relaxed, I have the energy and the drive and the time to come out here and work. Now, I had a lot more time to come out here and work when I was unemployed because of COVID. That, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have all of this going. Having that time off really enabled me to jumpstart the project and get it going. If it wasn't for that, this might still be a couple of sheets of plywood with some track on it. These days, I come out to the garage after dinner, do some filming, do some train running, some repairs, whatever it is I'm working on, and then go back inside and we'll all relax on the couch. Maybe the kids watch a movie and I'll sit there and edit the video. You kind of get into a groove of streamlining the process. When I started this, it took me so much time to edit. These days, I have to do a lot less editing, but I mean, something like this video, it's going to take a lot of listening and cutting and splicing. You kind of have to balance that out. Like the video I was working on before this was a train run. So that's just fun. You just run trains and take video. That does not take a lot of time to do. It takes time. You got to, especially with this layout, having to take everything on and off the layout all the time, but it's an easier video to film. So if there's going to be a more difficult video or a more time consuming edit, I try to do that in between less demanding videos. But I also do have to say that I have a very supporting family. They all love that I am really into the hobby and having such a good time with it. And it's good for me. And if it's good for me, it's good for them. Everybody's happy and balanced. Well, I don't know if everybody's happy, but we're in a pretty good spot. And hopefully I keep having the time to do this. One of the reasons I try to come at this hobby from a budget perspective is I have the kids and a house, and there's expenses all the time. So when I do a $25 challenge at a train show, it's because I want to keep going to the train shows, and I don't have the budget to spend hundreds of dollars every time. Besides, going to a show and spending $25 is fun. I'm going to try that this weekend coming up. I'm not sure when this video will be out, but this weekend coming up is the Greenberg show in Edison. So considering a lot of other expenses going on right now, that's definitely a $25 train show. We'll see if I stick to that. I want to thank all of you for your questions and for watching this video to see what my answers were. I really, really do appreciate the support and the camaraderie and the friendships I've made because of this channel. It's really been a very good thing for me. I hope to be able to continue doing this, not just the hobby, but the videos, because the videos really keep me focused on the hobby in general and on doing things that make sense for not just my layout, but for my approach to the hobby in general. So thank you very much for your questions. I hope I've answered them. I do tend to babble, so maybe I didn't. We can always pick this up and try again. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, maybe share the channel with some of your train nerd friends if they haven't been over. And I'll see you next time on Dagryffyn Hobby.